What would you do if, on the happiest night of your life, the truth exploded before everyone you knew, shattering your perfect moment in a single breath? The ballroom shimmered under a ceiling of crystal chandeliers, their reflections scattered across the polished marble like broken diamonds. Music from a live high-life band curled through the air, weaving itself around laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft scrape of silverware against porcelain. It should have been the perfect wedding reception, lavish, orchestrated, and airtight. But then it happened. The master of ceremonies, a broad-shouldered man in a glittering agbada, froze mid-joke. His hand, still raised toward the ceiling, quivered as his eyes widened in disbelief. The microphone squealed with feedback before falling into silence. The room followed. One by one, conversations died, laughter stalled, and every face turned toward the raised platform where the bride and groom sat. Ada, the new bride, stood. Her white gown caught the light, a river of silk spilling onto the stage. But her face held no joy. Her hands trembled slightly, yet her voice, when it came, was steady, cutting through the hush like glass. "We won't pretend," she said. It was only 3 words, but they carried the weight of thunder. A ripple of shock ran through the crowd. People gasped, some clutched at their pearls, others fumbled for their phones. A low murmur started at the back and surged forward like a tidal wave. Guests whispered in hurried Yoruba, Igbo, and English, their disbelief overlapping into a chorus of scandal. The groom, Tund, still in his sleek black tuxedo, sat frozen beside her. His smile, so carefully practiced for photographers all evening, faltered into something brittle and thin. He glanced around, searching for an anchor, a way out, but none came. Cameras from guests' smartphones locked onto his face. The night, meant to cement his triumph, was unraveling before his eyes. At the main table, Connell, his best man, stiffened. The glass of champagne in his hand tilted, spilling golden liquid onto the crisp white tablecloth. His smirk, once playful, had vanished. In a corner, Chief Nwosu, the bride's father, rose halfway to his feet, his voice caught in his throat, but his wife, Ngozi, placed a hand on his arm, urging him to stay still. The MC tried to recover, his voice quaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we should." "No," Ada's voice cut across his. "Stronger this time. Not tonight. Not like this." Gasps swelled again. From across the room, Amara, elegant in her understated dress, sat perfectly still, her eyes trained on Ada. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, but something unreadable flickered across her face, like the brief glint of light off water. The air was electric, charged with the knowledge that something immense had just cracked open. Guests leaned forward, breathless, waiting for the next words, the next revelation. A woman near the back whispered, "Yezu. She's stopping the wedding." Another murmured, "But why? What happened?" And then, the screen went black. Sometimes the most dangerous games don't begin in boardrooms or on battlefields. They start with a single invitation written in gold letters, carrying the weight of pride and hidden motives. The glow of Lagos at night spilled in through the glass windows of Tun's bachelor flat in Victoria Island. From the 12th floor, the view stretched across the city, blinking headlights in endless traffic, neon signs glowing, and the distant hum of the Atlantic. Inside, the apartment bore the look of a man desperate to impress. Leather couches polished too often, a collection of imported whiskey bottles on display, and framed articles of Tun's face from business magazines scattered across the wall like trophies. Tund himself lounged in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, exuding charm even in his own living room. He scrolled through his iPad, finalizing the guest list for what he swore would be the wedding of the year. Across from him, Connell, his best friend since secondary school, sat with his legs sprawled, sipping from a glass of whiskey that was probably too expensive for him to appreciate. "You sure about this?" Connell asked, raising a brow as he watched Tund type in a name. "Inviting Amara? On your wedding day? Omo, that's like bringing kerosene to a fire." Tund's lips curved into a smug smile. "Exactly why I must. People need to see I've moved on. That nothing, absolutely nothing, lingers between us." Connell snorted. "Moved on? Bro, be honest. This is performance. You want to stand in that church hand in hand with Ada and still let Amara watch? Not pride, nothing else." Tund waved him off, leaning back with an air of confidence. "It's maturity, Connell. The mark of a man who can face his past without shame." But Connell wasn't convinced. He leaned forward, voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "Okay, let's make it fun then. A small bet. When she sees you at that altar, when she sees Ada glowing beside you, I give her 5 minutes before she cracks. Tears, bro, real tears. I'll put my Rolex on it. Tund chuckled, shaking his head. You and your foolishness. Kunnel grinned. So you're scared to take the bet? The words, light as they sounded, were a challenge. Tund hated challenges. He leaned in, eyes glinting. Fine. But when she doesn't cry, that watch is mine. They clinked glasses, sealing it. At that very moment, the golden e-invite landed in Amara's inbox across town. In her quiet Ikoyi townhouse, far from the city's noise, she sat at a wooden desk, her laptop open, papers neatly stacked beside her. The invite glowed at the top of her screen. You are warmly invited to celebrate the union of Tund Adeyemi and Adaora Nwosu. Her finger hovered over the mouse for a moment. Then she clicked it open, her eyes scanning the elegant design, the bold fonts, the smiling faces of Tund and Ada. For a long time she said nothing. Just silence, broken only by the ticking of a clock on the wall. Finally, Amara whispered, almost to herself, so this is what we're doing now. Her assistant, who had just entered with a stack of financial reports, glanced at the screen. Madam, are you going to reply? Amara smiled faintly, her expression unreadable. Yes, I'll attend. But not for the reasons anyone thinks. She closed the laptop softly, as though sealing a decision that would soon ripple far beyond that quiet room. Amara's home in Ikoyi was the opposite of Tund's flashy bachelor pad. Where his walls screamed ambition with framed magazine covers, hers whispered calm in muted tones of cream and wood. A long bookshelf stretched from wall to wall, lined with architectural journals, novels, and binders neatly labeled with years and projects. The air carried the faint scent of jasmine from a candle burning near the window, its glow softening the sharp edges of the evening. Amara sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop painting her face in pale light. The invitation to Tund's wedding remained open on the screen, its gold fonts and smiling portraits still as bold as when she first clicked it. For minutes she had simply stared at it, allowing old memories to rise like ghosts and then settle again. Her assistant, Chika, entered the room with a tablet in hand. Madam, the Singapore board is on the line in an hour. They want confirmation about the Southeast Asia expansion. Amara closed the laptop gently. I'll be ready. Leave the files here. Chika hesitated, eyes flicking toward the laptop. That was a wedding invite, wasn't it? Yes, Amara replied, her tone even, betraying nothing. You'll ignore it? A faint smile touched Amara's lips. No, I'll attend. Some chapters must be closed face to face, not left to gather dust in the mind. Chika frowned, clearly curious but too professional to probe. She set the tablet down, then pointed to a printed financial report. One more thing, the anonymous donation for the Girls in Tech Foundation. They need your final confirmation before announcing. Do you want it tied to your name this time? No, Amara said quickly. Keep it anonymous. It's not about me. Chika nodded and slipped out of the room, leaving Amara alone with her thoughts. She rose and crossed to the window, pulling back the curtains. Outside, Ikoyi's leafy streets lay quiet, the hum of distant traffic softened by the night. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, calm, composed, but with eyes that held a depth of stories untold. She touched the edge of the window pane as if grounding herself in the present. Tund's name echoed faintly in her mind, carrying with it memories she had worked so hard to bury. His laughter, once the rhythm of her days. His ambition, once intoxicating, now suffocating. The night she walked away not because she loved him less, but because he had begun to love the idea of himself more than the people around him. Now he was marrying another. And he had invited her. Perhaps as a test, perhaps as a performance. It didn't matter. She would go, not to reopen wounds, but to prove to herself that scars could be worn with grace. She turned from the window and began to prepare for her board call, her face once again a mask of serenity. But deep inside, a quiet storm stirred. The Nwosu family home in Lekki Phase 1 was buzzing with wedding preparations. Tailors hurried through the corridors with last-minute adjustments, cooks rattled pots in the kitchen, and relatives streamed in and out with the casual authority of kin who had appointed themselves assistants. In the center of it all sat Ada, poised and radiant, a gown draped loosely over her figure as her seamstress made tiny alterations to the bodice. Her mother, Ngozi, hovered nearby, eyes shining with pride. Ada, you look like a queen. Your father will have to hire soldiers to keep the men away even after marriage. Ada laughed softly, though her mind was elsewhere. Her phone lay on the dresser beside a folder of documents. Budgets for her NGO, Girls in Tech Africa. Numbers stared back at her. Grants, expenses, projections. She had been working on it before the seamstress arrived, and now her fingers itched to return to the figures. Her father, Chief Nwosu, entered the room, his agbada sweeping the floor like a king in his palace. "My daughter," he boomed, "today is not a day for spreadsheets and numbers. Today is about alliances, about families coming together. You and Tund will be unstoppable." Ada's smile wavered. She respected her father, but she knew his world was built on deals and partnerships, not on the delicate intricacies of human connection. "It's about love too, Daddy," she said quietly. "Of course," he replied quickly, though the word felt like an afterthought. Ngozi placed a protective hand on Ada's shoulder. "Leave her be, Chief. Love and alliances can coexist. Let her balance them in her own way." Ada exhaled in relief, grateful for her mother's defense. She stood, smoothing her gown as the seamstress packed her tools. For a moment she caught her own reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was beautiful, yes, but she looked like someone standing at a crossroads. Behind her poised smile, questions whispered. Was this truly what she wanted? Or was she being swept along in a tide of family expectations and society's applause? Her phone buzzed on the dresser. A message from Kemi, her maid of honor. "Girl, I hope Tun knows how lucky he is. Don't let him perform for the crowd. This day is yours too." Ada smiled faintly and tucked the phone away. She could always count on Kemi's blunt honesty. As the household swirled with preparations, Ada took a deep breath. Somewhere across the city, her fiancé was preparing in his own way. And perhaps she thought his ex was preparing too. The church in Ikoyi stood tall and elegant, its cream walls glowing faintly under the afternoon sun. Inside, the air was cool, filled with the scent of polished wood and fresh flowers. Rows of pews stretched back into the shadows, while at the altar, the wedding party gathered for the rehearsal. Ada walked hand in hand with Tun down the aisle, her gown replaced with a simple dress, her smile measured but genuine. The priest, a kind-faced man with spectacles slipping down his nose, guided them through the motions. When to stand, when to kneel, how to exchange rings with grace. Behind them, Kunnel lounged in his seat, cracking jokes under his breath. "Ah, Tund, make sure you don't fumble the ring, oh. If you drop it, nah sign of bad luck." His laughter echoed lightly. The groomsmen chuckled, but Ada noticed Tund laughing louder than everyone else, his voice slightly forced. Kemi, standing beside Ada as maid of honor, rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Kunnel, must everything be a joke to you?" Kunnel grinned. "Weddings are stressful. I'm just keeping the mood light." Still, the undertone was sharp. Ada caught it. So did Kemi. The subtle teasing felt less like humor and more like an inside game. As the rehearsal wrapped up, Ada noticed Kunnel leaning close to Tund, whispering something that made them both chuckle. Their laughter lingered too long, echoing through the church even as the priest offered his final blessing. Ada frowned slightly but said nothing. Kemi, however, nudged her arm. "You saw that, right?" Ada nodded but brushed it off. She wanted no shadows on her wedding eve. Still, something about their shared laughter left a mark. The hotel lobby buzzed with quiet luxury. Soft jazz played over the speakers as businessmen tapped at laptops, travelers sipped cocktails, and the scent of roasted coffee lingered in the air. At the far end, Tund and Kunnel sat in leather chairs, their drinks glinting in the low light. Kunnel leaned back, his smile sly. "Tomorrow, bro. Your big day. Lagos won't stop talking about it for weeks." Tund smirked, pride lighting his face. "It's the wedding of the year. Everything is perfect." Kunnel swirled his drink. "Except one thing. That ex of yours. Imagine her watching you, Ada glowing, you shining. Chai, the look on her face will be priceless." Tund laughed, his voice louder than it should be. "She won't flinch. She's too proud for that." Kunnel leaned forward. "Then let's raise the stakes. Forget the Rolex. If Amara cries tomorrow, real tears, you buy me that designer watch I've been eyeing. If she doesn't, I'll hand it over." Tund hesitated, the alcohol warm in his veins. The thought of proving once again that he had the upper hand over Amara tempted him more than he cared to admit. He raised his glass. "Deal." Their glasses clinked, sealing the wager. Unseen by them, outside the glass wall of the lobby, a sleek black SUV slid past slowly. Inside, Amara sat quietly in the back seat, her face calm as she watched the hotel glow behind tinted windows. She turned away and asked her driver to take her home. The church courtyard bustled with activity as guests arrived, their bright THE-EBENZ fabrics shimmering in the sunlight. Laughter and chatter filled the air, blending with the horns of passing traffic. A sleek black car pulled up and Amara stepped out. She wore a simple but elegant navy gown that caught the light in subtle waves. Her hair was pulled back neatly, a diamond pendant the only visible jewelry. Heads turned immediately. "Is that?" whispered one guest. "Yes, that's her. The ex." The murmurs spread like wildfire. Some gawked openly, others pretended not to stare, but every eye followed her as she crossed the courtyard. Amara, unbothered, walked with poise. On her way in, she noticed the florist struggling with an arrangement, muttering about unpaid overtime. Quietly, without drawing attention, she slipped a folded note of cash into the woman's hand. "Take this, please. Thank you for your work." The florist blinked in shock but whispered, "God bless you, madam." Amara smiled faintly and continued on, her heels clicking softly against the stone. She signed the guest book with steady handwriting and entered the church, every movement deliberate, every gesture graceful. The service began, hymns rising to the high ceiling. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting the pews in colors of red, green, and blue. Ada stood at the altar, radiant in her white gown, while Tun stood beside her, chest puffed with pride. From her seat halfway down the aisle, Amara lifted her gaze. For a brief moment her eyes met Tun's. The air seemed to still. Tun's smile faltered for the smallest fraction of a second before he forced it back. Amara's expression remained calm, her eyes holding no bitterness, only something steady, final. Ada noticed. Her hand in Tun's tightened, not out of insecurity but out of quiet strength. Later she would decide to approach Amara herself, not as a rival but as a woman determined to own her place. The priest's voice filled the air as he guided them through the vows. "If there is anyone here who knows why these two should not be joined together, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence stretched. Then someone coughed. A chair creaked loudly as a guest shifted. Heads turned sharply, expecting drama, an objection, a scandal. But nothing came. Only the quiet hum of the air conditioner and the rustle of dresses. The tension melted slowly into relieved laughter. Tund exhaled, Ada smiled, and the priest continued. But the moment left a subtle unease, as though the universe itself had paused to give someone a chance to intervene. The ceremony ended with applause and cheers. Outside, cameras flashed as the couple descended the church steps. Rice flew into the air, glittering in the sunlight as guests shouted blessings. Amara stood among the crowd, her smile soft. She waited until the throng had calmed before stepping forward. To everyone's surprise, it was Ada who approached her first. "Thank you for coming," Ada said sincerely. Amara inclined her head. "It was important to me. I wish you both happiness." The sincerity disarmed Ada. Whatever stories she had heard about Amara, none matched the grace before her now. Kemi, standing nearby, studied the exchange closely, her eyes narrowing at Tun's forced laughter behind them. In that moment, a quiet understanding formed between the two women, unspoken but undeniable. The reception hall glittered under soft golden lights. Long tables draped in silk lined the space, while servers hurried back and forth with trays of champagne. Guests filled the room with noise and energy, their conversations blending into one steady hum. Behind the scenes, vendors scrambled, musicians tuning instruments, caterers racing against time. In the hallway, the hotel GM quietly thanked an anonymous donor for settling vendor balances early. "We'd have been sunk without it," he muttered. Back in the ballroom, Chief Nwosu worked the room like a seasoned politician, shaking hands and boasting of family alliances. Ada moved gracefully among the guests, but her eyes searched often for Tund, as though checking that he wasn't playing to the crowd too much. At a corner table, Amara watched silently, sipping water. Her presence was both invisible and undeniable, like a calm center in a storm. Kunnel leaned in toward Tund, grinning. "Time for the big toast, my guy. Make it unforgettable." Ada squeezed Tund's hand gently. He thought it was encouragement, but the look in her eyes held a quiet plea. "Keep it simple. Keep it kind." Kemi, from across the table, caught Kunnel's smirk. Her instincts flared, but she said nothing yet. The stage was set. Just as Tund stood, the MC raised a hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, an announcement." Screens around the hall lit up. The reception, the MC revealed, had been transformed into a surprise fundraiser for girls in Tech Africa. Gasps rippled as the MC announced a 500 million Nigerian nairas matching pledge from an anonymous benefactor. "Can the donor please stand?" Whispers filled the room. Slowly, Amara rose from her seat. The hall erupted in gasps and applause. Tund froze. Ada's eyes widened, not in envy but in astonishment. Tund, rattled, pressed forward with his toast anyway. His words, meant to be light, carried a bitter edge. "To the past, may it remain where it belongs, behind us." He chuckled, waiting for laughter. It never came. Amara simply smiled and lifted her glass. To the future, she said calmly. And to Ada's vision. From tonight, every return from my early investment in Tun's company will go to the foundation she built, for more girls to learn, build, and succeed. The room exploded with applause. Phones rose into the air to record. Tun's face fell. Kemi confronted Kunal outside, sensing his smirk. In the scuffle, his phone slipped from his pocket. On the screen, WhatsApp messages about the bet, voice notes of Tund laughing about making Amara cry. Kemi's jaw tightened. She grabbed the phone, her stomach sinking. Kemi showed Ada the messages. The bride's face went pale. So it wasn't just jokes, Ada whispered. She sought out Amara quietly. Away from the noise, Ada confessed how the toast had stung. Amara touched her arm gently. This is not about me. It never was. It's about you and what you deserve. In that moment, any rivalry dissolved. Two women standing together in truth. Ada walked calmly back to the stage. The music faltered as she took the mic. Humiliation is not love, she said clearly. The room fell silent. We will not keep performing. The marriage will not continue until trust is rebuilt. Gasps thundered through the hall. Some guests clapped in support, others shook their heads. Chief Nwosu tried to hush her, but Ngozi stood beside her daughter, firm. Tun's face drained of color. Before chaos could swallow the evening, Amara stepped in. She spoke softly to the MC, redirecting the event. Tonight doesn't have to be wasted. Let it become a gala. Vendors are paid, the food is here, let's make this a night for the girls who need it most. Her calm authority steadied the room. Guests applauded again, this time with respect. Tun tried to corner Ada, his words spilling fast. It was just a joke, Ada. Kunal pushed me into it. Ada listened but didn't answer. Later, in a boardroom, investors demanded answers about Amara's note converting into Ada's NGO. Governance changes were enforced. Tun's charm no longer protected him. For the first time, he faced silence instead of applause. Ada and Amara met in a small cafe by the waterfront. The city roared outside, but inside it was quiet. Amara stirred her coffee slowly. I didn't want to embarrass him. I wanted to invest in you. Ada smiled softly. And you did. Not just in me but in what matters. They leaned across the table, two women bound not by rivalry but by vision. Let's build something greater, Amara said. A fellowship, a program. Something bigger than weddings, bigger than pride. Ada nodded. Let's make 1,000 weddings worth of noise, quietly. Outside the city moved on. Inside, two women started something new.